Hey everybody, Rob Orgel with Ballistic MG. In today's video, we're going to talk about 5 things that you didn't know about 50 BMG. Let's kick it off. The first one is the application of 50 BMG. Next is going to be the optics you couple your 50 BMG with. Then the platform and how it plays a role in the caliber. Then how much power is 50 BMG actually? And we'll be comparing it to 308 for that one. Then we're going to talk about what the felt recoil is like. So let's kick things off. 1. Application. There are several military and law enforcement applications for 50 BMG. Now, it's usually used as a high-energy weapon or anti-materiel program. An anti-materiel program is for taking out industrial things, like an engine block or a radar system or something like that at distance. This requires a lot of energy to make penetration and do the desired amount of damage. When you look at the law enforcement perspective, there's a lot of high-energy weapons packages to stop an armored assailant. Whether that means this person is wearing body armor or a reaction to mass shooting, a 50 BMG is very well suited to stop a mass shooter regardless of what level of body armor they're wearing. So, optics. Applying the right optic to your 50 BMG is going to be dictated by the role you want your 50 BMG to serve. Much like a shotgun, you can throw birdshot, buckshot, slug in your shotgun, and now the same shotgun is doing very different roles. For me, I use it more of like the law enforcement perspective of high energy. Meaning, if a vehicle is coming charging down my driveway and I got to stop that vehicle, having low magnification and rapid repeatability with the added recoil is my goal. That means a red dot is best suited for me. A lot of law enforcement programs have red dots, 1-6s or 1-8s, being that kind of lower powered variable optic. Now, I know a lot of us play Call of Duty and we want a higher powered optic on top of it for reaching further. And if 50 BMG is your long range round, there's no problem with that. It does do a great job of long range target engagement. But the bullet does fall to the sky kind of fast, much like a 308. There are better rounds for going that extra distance. But if it's your bullet, it will do the job just fine. So now let's talk about why I chose the M107. The platform plays a big role in felt recoil and capabilities of that round. So if you want to push distance, you probably don't want a 20-inch like mine. You probably want something with a longer barrel. This way you're maximizing the velocity out of your round. Personally, as I mentioned, high energy weapon transition, I like it to be shorter. Also, that felt recoil. When we talk about recoil, we'll talk about how the platform plays a role in your recoil as we get down into the recoil section. For now, consider it like your shotgun and its application. If you've got an 18-inch home defense weapon, it's about giving buckshot in close quarters. If you've got a 27-inch dove gun, then it's about reaching further out on a dove who's flying through the sky. While they're both still 12 gauge, they serve different roles. And this also points out the different types of ammo I can select for my 50 BMG. There are very unique rounds that are designed to penetrate incredible levels of body armor. There's armor-piercing incendiary tracers, the list goes on in the amount of things you can put in your 50 BMG. I personally use the ball ammunition. This is a 660 grain XM33 bullet. The reason I use ball is, like I mentioned earlier, high energy. I'm not looking for maximum consistency, just higher energy. And if you want that longer range, you probably want to check out that match ammunition. Next, power. How much power does a 50 BMG actually possess? In comparing it to a 308, when my 50 BMG comes out of the muzzle of this weapon, it's traveling at 2,490 feet per second, and it's delivering 9,115 foot-pounds of energy. That is a ton of energy. To put it in perspective, a 308, everybody loves their 175 grain Sierra Match King 308s. Got it. Let's use that as a reference. So the long-range 308 shooters will have a muzzle velocity of around 2,700 to 2,750 feet per second, and that's going to be accompanied with a 2,844 foot-pounds of energy out the muzzle. That is 1/3 the level of energy that my 50 BMG will deliver at the muzzle. It's more identifiable at distance. So let's hop to the 500-yard line. My 50 BMG at 500 yards carries 5,300 foot-pounds of energy, whereas a 308 is only carrying 1,374 foot-pounds of energy. So now we went from 1/3 to much less than 1/3. Now what's interesting is they both fly in a similar fashion. A 50 BMG at 500 yards is falling 3.5 mils, whereas a 308 at that distance will typically fall about 3.1 mils at 500. All right, let's bump to the 1,000 because all the sexy stuff happens at 1,000. Okay, at 1,000 yards, my 50 BMG is dropping 10.3 mils versus a 308 who's dropping 10.4 mils. Now they're kind of matching again in their flight path, but the energy difference is substantial. The 50 BMG is carrying almost 3,000 pounds of energy, whereas the 308 is carrying only 600 pounds of energy. So now we're talking five-fold the energy of a 50 BMG at that distance. So the further you go out, the more the 50 BMG will shine compared to some of those smaller calibers. It just depends on the role that you want to apply your 50 BMG for, so you can take best advantage of that setup. Again, me with my 20-inch barrel, much more for close quarters, high energy type stuff. Recoil. What does a 50 BMG feel like? My previous 50 BMG was the Barrett Model 99. That's a bolt-action, bullpup style 50 BMG, which means when I press the trigger, I feel all that energy hit my body, and it's a bit rough for a ride. It's high intensity. With that high intensity ride comes a limitation, obviously recoil management and recoil anticipation, but also a round count. There are several programs that will tell you don't shoot more than 10 or 30 or whatever their number is per day, because you run the risk of detaching your retina from your eye. This is why they'll limit each individual operator's round count for the day. Now, on the platform I have now, being the semi-automatic M107A1, I chose it because it's a much softer shooting gun, and it still allows me to add a suppressor when the time is right. Because there are so many moving parts on these Barretts and how they absorb recoil and use that to cycle the action, it's actually a very soft shooting gun. So I wouldn't compare it to a 22 by any means, but a lot of my buddies have said it's very similar to a 308, just with lots more moving parts happening in your hands. So it's a little bit weird to shoot, but it's actually fairly pleasant to shoot. So if you're looking to get into the 50 BMG market, make sure you know the platform you're choosing and you're choosing the right platform for your interests. So that's what recoil feels like on a 50 BMG. Now let's recap. Here's the 5 topics we talked about for the 50 BMG and things you might not know. Application, optics, platform, power, and what felt recoil really feels like. Hopefully this brought some light into 50 BMG and took a little bit of that mystery away. In the comment section below, tell me what your dream gun is.